I'd like to tell you a little bit about ConvergeOne Government Solutions. We are part of a growing $2 billion IT company. We have a deep commitment to helping our customers succeed in IT projects. We bring some of the best talent and the best technologies to provide tremendous benefit to government programs. We have federally focused expertise in the FedRAMP cloud, security services, and emerging technologies. We strive to help our customers modernize, optimize, innovate, and automate their IT projects. ConvergeOne Government Solutions is one of the first federal Zoom phone partner integrators. We have decades of telephony experience, which really help us bring migrations, integrating legacy systems into the new type of platforms. Zoom has become synonymous with video calls. So we have customers all the time tell us they had no idea Zoom had phone offerings as well as video offerings. So we'd like to have Bobby from Zoom go through the scope of the Zoom Phone for Government. So Bobby, please take it away.
Ryan, thank you for that introduction. Very excited to be here on the webinar today. And yeah, it's kind of funny the question you asked about the Zoom Phone. What Zoom Phone really is an extension of the Zoom platform that is very familiar to everyone. But it's a use case that's focused specifically on enterprise voice, delivering both enterprise-grade PBX functionality as well as a global PSTN footprint. So when we talk about Zoom Phone, we really are able to offer that one-stop shop for enterprise voice, inclusive of the typical PBX that people might have on-prem with Avaya, Cisco, Mitel, those type of providers, as well as your existing carrier services from AT&T, Lumen, Verizon. We're bringing all that together as a cloud-delivered solution. But before we get too deep into the the deep dive on Zoom Phone, I'd like to take a step back and say, what is the genesis of Zoom Phone, and what is the path and the journey that we've been on at Zoom that's kind of led to this capability for Zoom Phone? So rewinding about 10 years, Zoom was formed really with a mission of delivering high quality video anywhere in the world, across any network. And we were born into a cloud native world. So we didn't have a legacy infrastructure that we were trying to repurpose into a cloud. We had a white, clean sheet of paper that we were able to deliver on our video vision. I think by most counts, we've delivered on that vision very, very well. As we built out the video platform, our customers started asking us questions about additional use cases. For example, we're on a Zoom meeting right now. I'm on a MacBook Pro. I have a cheap webcam on top of my 27-inch monitor. And customers said, we understand this experience, but how can we bring this in to the context of a more formal conference room setting? And we delivered against that request from our customers in what we call Zoom rooms, where we leverage commodity hardware up on the wall and take the same type application that we're using today for Zoom and deploy that on a controller on the desktop table inside that conference room. We were able to take the same meeting experience and extend it from one to many in a webinar type setting like we're in today. Of course, we plugged in a world-class chat, and really the most recent addition to the Zoom family has been Zoom Phone. So Zoom Phone is interesting in that it leverages the same platform that we're leveraging for all these other services. We have the video engine that we're in right now with a video meeting, but you can also hear me. So we have an audio part of our platform as well. So Zoom Phone has taken that audio part of the Zoom platform, and we surrounded it with PBX features. Now, you heard me say earlier that we were born into the cloud, right? We're a cloud native platform. So for those of you that are DevSecOps people that like talking about Kubernetes, microservices, CI/CD pipelines, agile development, all of that stuff, that's the world that Zoom lives in. And so because of that, we were able to very quickly take our audio engine and deliver a microservice, for example, to take a call and put it on hold. A separate microservice to take the call and transfer it to someone else. So all of these PBX features are simply microservices that plug into the platform for voicemail with transcriptions, for recordings, for call queues, for auto attendance, all those things you expect out of a enterprise grade PBX, we were able to deliver very quickly through this microservices architecture. And to date, in fact, we've been delivered over 400 features on the Zoom Phone platform. We're top right in the Gartner Magic Quadrant for UCaaS. We just recently announced over 3 million users on our platform. And this is just the beginning. But the real message here, Ryan, is that Zoom provides a single platform for all these use cases. The end user experience is consistent across all these use cases, a single management platform, a single underlying UCaaS platform.
And Bobby, to be clear, we're talking to government customers today, correct?
Yeah, so it's a great question. In fact, so when I talk about going back 10 years, obviously that's our Zoom commercial platform. You use it, I use it, our kids use it, our parents, grandparents use it. We went and actually replicated that infrastructure within US-based data centers, specifically as the Zoom for Government platform, which is a separate platform from our commercial platform, focused specifically on government customers and the ecosystem of integrators that surround the government ecosystem. So Zoom for Government does have ATOs for FedRAMP Moderate. We've had that, in fact, for the last 3 years, since 2019. Most recently, we have got a full ATO from the Air Force for IL4 communications, including CUI and FOUO. And we're underway with DISA. We actually have a provisional authority from DISA to operate at IL4. And we're in the midst of doing all of that heavy lifting behind the scenes for NIPRNet, for CAP connections, that type of thing. But yes, this is all focused today on the government customer.
Hey, Bobby, that sounds great and very secure. But, when I think of Zoom, I think of simplicity. It just kind of works. My kids use it, my parents use it. But when I think of a business phone system, I don't think of simplicity. How can we talk through that today?
Yeah. Thanks for actually asking that question, because when I think about simplicity, I think about what really launched Zoom into hyper growth mode over the last two and a half years. Right? We were all working in our offices on Friday afternoon, went home for the weekend. On Monday, we were told, don't bother coming back. We need to work from home. And in that context, all the guys that are watching this webinar really had to do the heavy lifting from an IT perspective to enable large numbers of people to work from home almost overnight. And what they found was that Zoom was very easy to procure, to deploy. Very importantly, it was very easy for users to adopt. And then ultimately, it was very easy to manage as well. But let's focus on that end user experience. So that same simplicity that we were able to deliver for Zoom meetings, we are now able to deliver for Zoom Phone. I'm going to share my screen with you. And really, let's talk about simplicity from the perspective of an end user experience. So for now, guys, I'm going to go ahead and share my entire desktop with you. And I'm going to do that. So if there's some notifications that pop up, right, this is my production account. And, hopefully there's nothing embarrassing that pops up there. This is my Zoom client. You can see my avatar at the top right says ZFG. This is my Zoom for Government account. So this is the home screen. And most Zoom users are used to this, right? Here's where I can start a meeting. You can see my calendar integration with the meeting we're in today. You can see I can share a screen. I can do a number of different things. You see my chats along the top, as well as meetings and contacts. If I'm a Zoom Phone end user and my agency just turned on phone, the thing that's changed in my life is I now have a phone icon embedded inside the same client. Now, if I click on that phone icon, I'm going to just pause for a second and let my eyes kind of wander around a little bit. The first thing I'm presented with is a very familiar, intuitive smartphone type experience. I have a keypad. I have a place where I can enter a name or a number. That seems logical enough. Below the keypad, I have a drop-down box where I can make an outbound call and either display my direct number, a main company number, some other number, such as being part of a call queue, or I can anonymize the call altogether. On the left-hand side of the screen, you see my history, you see voicemails, lines, and SMSs. So with the history, you see that, here's my history over the last couple of weeks. I can simply click on the phone button to call someone back. I can hover over the ... for a number that's not known, and I could actually create a contact directly from that phone number. Now, if I go to a different device, for example, and make an inbound call, I'm going to make an inbound call. I'm going to put that call on hold, or on mute, I'm sorry. And you see that Abe is calling me. I'm going to accept that call. And go ahead and put that call on mute so we don't have a lot of echo in the background. So now you see I'm on an active call. And what has changed here is our keypad now has transformed into feature keys. So this is very similar to an Android or iPhone device. I was able to click on unmute. You can see I can access the keypad. I can change my audio source from my AirPods to a speakerphone to my built-in microphones. I can do conference, hold, transfer. A couple interesting buttons that are available to me that are very uncommon is record. So if I'm on a phone call, I can actually do an ad hoc recording of this phone call, which is then accessible to me after this call is over. You also see a meet button. The meet button allows me to take this phone call that I'm currently on with Abe and escalate this immediately into a Zoom meeting. So I could have actually started this phone call with a chat session, escalate to a phone call, escalate that to a meeting so we can see each other with video, and then go into a screen sharing mode and share content. So I'm going to go ahead and end this call. And now we will see that the history is going to change, and I see Abe up there now. And of course, I could call him right back and get the same outbound type experience that I just illustrated with an inbound call. So that's the history, that's the keypad. You'll also see my voicemails with transcriptions. Now, one of the interesting questions that we get quite often, Ryan, is can I take this voicemail and send this voicemail to my email? And the answer is yes, we can do that. However, having caveated that with a yes, I will say that most of my customers choose not to do so. And the reason is that the Zoom platform is already a cloud-based service. The voicemail already exists in the Zoom secure cloud, including the transcription. If you take this message and now send it to a separate platform, your email platform, you're having to use twice the storage. You have to figure out your retention and kind of compliance policies in 2 different places. And besides, who wants to take a voicemail and send it to an already cluttered email box? So for those reasons, most of my customers choose simply to keep the voicemails within the Zoom phone platform. Next button over is line keys. If I click on line keys, let's dig into this a little bit. So the first line key here is my personal line key. This is my DID that corresponds to the car ID that's shown under the keypad. The entry for Barb here is actually a shared line appearance. In my sandbox, I actually have myself set up as an administrator for Barb, who's my manager. And so whenever a call comes in for Barb, I can answer that call on her behalf. And in fact, if I look at my drop-down box, I'm allowed to make an outbound call on her behalf as well. So when I call someone back, I can tell them this is Bobby, I'm calling on behalf of Barb, either relay a message or the conference you're on. The last message here is technical support, and you'll see that this is under the monitoring heading. So what I have set up in my sandbox again is I'm defined as a monitor for a call queue, which is for technical support. So if one of my technical support agents needs help or I see them struggling, I can click on the monitoring button and go monitor that voice call. In fact, I can whisper into that agent's ear. I can barge into that call if it's appropriate. And if I need to, I can actually take that call over altogether. So that is the context behind the line keys that you see here. The last category is what we call SMS. So SMS is what you would expect from traditional text messaging, but Zoom Phone has a built-in SMS gateway. So we now bring the SMS and MMS modes of communication into the corporate world without having to share your personal cell phone to avail yourself of those capabilities. So again, you can see we have a couple test SMSs I've sent to myself and to other colleagues simply for demonstration purposes here. So clicking back on the history screen, and recap, Ryan, we think that we really have excelled in delivering that simplicity that users are used to in the Zoom meetings world, but now in a very intuitive smartphone type experience for phone as well.
I like how this looks. I mean, it really looks like an iPhone, and it's great that users don't need to install and learn a new app. I had no idea Zoom Phone had SMS. I always have to use my phone for text messaging. Does this also work on smartphones?
Yeah, so you actually, one of the things we can deliver is that consistency of experience. So what you'll see along the bottom of my screen that you're all seeing is you see my application toolbar. So I'm going to hover over QuickTime. So I actually use QuickTime to mirror my iPhone to the screen so that we can all see it in demonstrations like this. So if I click on QuickTime, you're going to see here's my home screen. I'm going to go ahead and unlock my iPhone by swiping up. And now you see my iPhone home screen, right? 144 emails. God bless my heart. Hopefully get to take care of that later today. You see my Zoom client in the middle of my iPhone. So if I click on that Zoom client, you're going to see here's the same home screen, very similar to what I had on my desktop client on the left. Along the bottom, we have Meet, Chat, Meetings, and Contacts, just like we had in the desktop client. And then we've also added the phone icon. So if I click on the phone icon, again, along the top, there's my history, my voicemails, my lines, my SMSs, starting with the history. Compare what you see on the right-hand side on my iPhone to what you see on the left-hand side of the screen on my desktop client. The history is all the same. Here's the same voicemails with the same transcriptions. Here's the same line keys that we just saw on my desktop client. Here's the same SMSs that we saw on the desktop client. So it's really all about that consistency of experience between the mobile phone and the desktop phone. Does that make sense?
It does. And in bringing the Zoom Phone to the mobile phone, it's really like having a corporate persona and a personal persona on the same device, which is really great. No one wants to carry around two cell phones. Now, as much as we got used to Zoom meetings, now that we can use the Zoom Phone on our laptops and mobile devices, I know some users would really like physical phones. Can we still use those?
Yeah. And there's also other use cases for physical phones, ring down phones, elevator phones. But there is that population of customers that still insist on having that physical desk phone. What's kind of interesting, and this is anecdotal, but based on my experience, we are seeing that number of users that still with that physical desk phone is really kind of in that 30 to 40% compared to pre-pandemic when everyone had a desk phone. Only about 30 to 40% of those users are still insisting on having a desk phone. The rest of them used to insist on having a desk phone, but they went home, used a headset with their desktop clients. They said, hey, who needs that desk phone anymore? But for those users that insist on desktop phone, what I like to do is, again, I'm mirroring my iPhone to the screen, but now I'm going to hit the camera button and use that to display my my desktop here in my home office. So this is a Poly VBX 450. If I zoom in, you will see that is my ZFG DID, my Zoom for Government DID. You'll see the shared line appearance with Barb, who we showed earlier in the client. You'll also see that I've configured a speed dial for my wife's cell phone, as well as being able to monitor that technical support call queue directly from my desk phone. So that really kind of completes the consistency of the end user experience from the desktop client to the mobile client to the physical desk phone.
Great. And can Zoom support analog lines?
Yes, we can absolutely support analog lines. I can talk to that from a perspective of, we actually have slides that talk to this, but we use ATAs. We have the larger, higher density analog gateways. We typically work with audio codes. We also support Ribbon, and we're starting to support some of the Cisco ATAs as well. So those will support a traditional fax machine, maybe an analog phone as a slimline phone. Some of our customers will use a slimline phone and actually throw them away, let's say in hospital type settings. Other uses for analog devices will be things like, believe it or not, we support the GD Mission Systems Viper phones, which is a secure NSA Type 1 device, which can actually plug in to one of our analog devices and go encrypted. So yes, we support a wide range of analog devices as well.
And what about bringing your own SIP gateway?
On this SIP gateway, typically when we talk to customers about a SIP gateway, it's going to be for what we call BYOC, bring your own carrier. So a lot of what we've talked about so far has been relative to Zoom native, where we deliver that PBX and we deliver the PSTN, the DIDs. For customers that want that balance between their existing carrier and an existing or a new Zoom native capability, we provide a capability. In fact, I should probably just go ahead and show this to you. Let me start here. So on the left-hand side of the screen, you'll see the Zoom native. So this is where the users are registered to Zoom Phone Cloud. When they make an outbound phone call or take an inbound phone call, Zoom is providing a connection to the PSTN. On the right side of the screen is what we call bring your own carrier, bring your own PBX. And in this case, the end users are registered to the Zoom Phone Cloud, but instead of routing directly to the PSTN from Zoom, they're going to go across a network connection, which is essentially a SIP trunk connecting the edge of the Zoom Phone Cloud to an on-premise SBC that the customer owns and operates. And now those users will traverse that link and out to their existing carrier services. Why would someone do that? They would do it for a number of reasons. They may have a long-term EIS contract that's already been in place and want to leverage that contract. They may have smoking good rates as part of that contract that they want to be able to leverage. And what's kind of interesting is if you look at a hybrid architecture, when we talk about BYOC and Zoom native, it's not an all or nothing. We can build a hybrid architecture. For example, what's illustrated here is on the right side of the screen. Let's say that you have some major or main facilities that have PSTN connections from a preferred carrier. And on the left-hand side, let's say you have a number of remote facilities. We have customers that have Comcast cable phone, right? We happen to have small key systems that have just grown up organically over decades. Those users are not connected necessarily to the mothership. In that case, that's a great use case where we can simplify the user experience and administrative interface of all those remote users using Zoom Phone with Zoom native PSTN. Now, what we do is we marry those two systems together. So we have Zoom native on one side, we have bring your own carrier on the other side. So we now have these two architectures talking together. So we don't have islands of communications, they're all integrated, and we can share a common dialing plan and a common directory structure. So this is the context in which we would have a customer leverage an existing SIP gateway.
Well, that's great. And it gives you a lot of different migration strategies. Now, with all these different architectural designs that are possible that we talk through, can we actually move from one device to another? For instance, if I'm talking on a hard phone, can I just walk out and put it onto my cell phone?
Yeah, so let me demonstrate that, and I'm going to do that by going ahead and bringing my iPhone back up. And I'm going to go back into phone mode, and this time I'm going to make another inbound call. I'm going to answer that call on my desktop client. And again, I'm going to put both sides on mute so that I don't complicate things with echo here. I'm going to go ahead and reduce the size of my desktop client. So now what you see is my iPhone on the right. You see my desktop client on the left. This desktop client is in an active call with Abe. Now let's say that I needed to head out and grab my cell phone and head to a meeting or head to the soccer game. What I'm going to do is on the desktop client, I'm going to put this call on hold. Now I'm going to go to my iPhone app, and I'm going to go to the lines button. And you see now that my main line is on hold with Abe. I'm simply going to pick up that call and again, put it on mute. And now I've switched that call just like that from my desktop client to my mobile client. And in fact, I could do the same exact thing to my physical desk phone.
So now when you're on the road, what happens if there's a 911 emergency? How do you guys deal with that? Because now you're not tied to a physical location.
Zoom phone, so there's a lot of things. There's Kerry's Law, there's Ray Baum's Act. There's lots of things that we as enterprise IT folks and phone voice guys need to comply with. Probably the most recent one is Ray Baum's Act, which says that you really need granular control of what information you send to a public safety answering point whenever someone dials 911. So in the IP telephony world, that's always been problematic, but you know, there's been different vendors that popped up with different solutions. Cisco has emergency responder, and Intrado has their system. Red Sky has their system that gets used on a lot of other third-party PBX platforms. When we built Zoom Phone, we built that emergency response capability intrinsic to the platform. And I can show you that in a couple of places. Number one is I'm going to go and click on Google Chrome. And this is a little bit of getting into the administrative side of things. But within the administrative portal, I'm able to go down to my company information and click on emergency services, which is, well, let me click on account settings and emergency services. This will allow me a lot of granular control of sending emergency calls to a PSAP, to an internal support team, as well as supporting development of locations within my enterprise. So what that allows me to do is map my network to physical locations and addresses. So when someone is logged into my network, wherever they happen to be on campus, if they dial 911, then it will get sent out to the PSAP with the proper information for the response location. That's all good. That's all well and good for people that are on campus. But as we mentioned, you know, 2.5 years ago, a lot of us went home and didn't go back to the office. And we're now being asked, you know, do we want to go back to the office? And we have this hybrid work environment. So what do we do for 911 when they're using Zoom Phone and happen to be working from a coffee shop or happen to be working from home? In that case, again, this is my Zoom Phone desktop app. This is where I'd be spending my life whenever I need to make a phone call or take phone calls. On the top right here, I'm being challenged. You know, I kind of ignored it earlier, but you'll see the red dot by my phone icon. You'll also see, let me hide these photo controls again. You'll also see the red arrow and dot on the right side of my screen. This is telling me you need to do something, guy. So I'm going to go ahead and click on here. And what it's saying is that it doesn't know what network I'm attached to. And in fact, if I dial 911, it's going to use a default account emergency response location, which is the main account for, or main address for this account, which is shown here as a Huntsman address. Now, I know that's not correct, so I'm going to go and update that. And in fact, I'm going to add a new address. And I'm going to be the guy who's sitting here nervously typing in front of a webinar of people. So I've simply typed in my address. It's kind of interesting because for 911, there's also this, this notion of system of record notifications. So by clicking this box, the user is confirming that others now have access to this information, including the PSAP and the account admin. I'm not going to add that address. It's going to do a geo lookup to make sure that it's the right address. So I'll go ahead and say use that address. Now you'll see in the top right that red arrow is gone. Zoom just associated my network in my home office with that physical address. Anytime I log in on Zoom Phone from this network, it will not challenge me again. Now, if I go and take my PC to the Starbucks, it's going to ask me the same question. So we call that nomadic 911. and really follows the user around wherever they're going. And one kind of interesting thing and capability built into Zoom Phone is the ability to test that 911 location. So I'm going to go ahead and dial 933 from my phone, and let's listen to the response I get back.
Your number 239-291-6795 for Bobby Hanson is provisioned for 911. The pre-provision address used is 236 La Paloma Road, Key Largo, Florida 33037 US.
All right, so we're able to handle 911 locations on campus for the nomadic mobile worker. And in fact, we give those people tool sets to confirm where their address is currently set up. Now, the last part I want to address on that is if I happen to be from dial 911 from the Zoom app on my cell phone. And in that case, Zoom has realized that the cell carriers have figured out 911 better than we ever could. And if you dial 911 from the Zoom Phone application on your mobile device, we will immediately hand that call over to the native dialer within your iPhone or Android device and leverage the cell carrier's capabilities for 911 for triangulation with cell towers, that type of thing. So we feel like we have a very comprehensive 911 solution. And one of the keys here is built into the platform. There's no additional cost.
That's great. You showed us some really great stuff. So I just want to wrap up and do an overview of what we just saw. I saw that Zoom Phone can offer an intuitive, smartphone-like experience, just like an iPhone, using the same app that you are already using on the Zoom side, and everyone already knows how to use that. It supports desktop clients, mobile clients, analog devices, and you bring your own SIP gateway. And you covered all the issues surrounding E911 compliance. So that's a very important key. Before we move on, I just want to point out that ConvergeOne Government Solutions can assist you with any of your professional services or third-party integrations that you need for your full entire solution set on this product. So before we end this webinar, can you touch on the reporting Zoom has to offer?
Yeah, it's a great point. I appreciate you bringing that up. A lot of times I talk to customers about the simplicity of the management, simplicity of the end user experience, but another key strength for Zoom in general, including the meetings, including rooms, and especially on phones, is the analytics and reportings. So I'd really address that in 3 different mechanisms here, Ryan. The first thing is under phone system management, we have logs available. If I click on logs, now understand this is a sandbox account. There's not a lot of data, but you'll see across the top, I can have calls, I can have SMSs, I can see my recordings and voicemails. I can set a date and time for a report. Let's go back to June 1st. And now all that information will update. I can export this. So if I look down through here, right, these are inbound, outbound calls, who to, who from, what's the duration, all that type of thing. Was there end-to-end encryption, which is also supported in the government platform? So this is very typically where our customers will request information that will then go into a CDR package. So if you're doing bill back, you have someone like an ISI that takes structured data in and then does bill back to all your departments. This is where you would be accessing that information. The second tool I want to mention here, I'm hovering over the dashboard. So dashboarding is very, very powerful within the Zoom world. And you'll see across the top, this is not just about Zoom Phone. We have this dashboard for meetings, for rooms, for our webinars, for our CRCs, which are cloud room connectors. But if I click on Zoom Phone, since that's the topic we're talking about today, you see some very, very powerful analytics that are available. Again, this is on a time basis. We can do it for calls. We can do it for certain extensions. The first tab here that you're seeing is quality of service. We also have usage and adoption. We can get information on the phones and devices that are registered. And we can also track the location, how many of our users have 911 locations set up, and which are those people that we need to go bug so that we're compliant with Ray Baum's Act. But really focusing on this first tab with quality of service, scrolling down just a hair, you see that our average mean opinion score in this sandbox has been 4.1. You see a wagon wheel here where I can hover over and I can, for example, drill in on the bad calls. And it's going to give me, this one had a MOS score of 3.1. This had a MOS score of 3.3. This was a nice long call. If I click on the more button here, I now start getting kind of cradle to grave reporting on the network conditions. Remember, the Zoom client talks to the Zoom cloud. So we have intrinsic information about the network connection between the two. So you start getting bit rate, you get packet loss, you get jitter. All of these things are extremely valuable to help desk techs that are trying to troubleshoot problematic phone calls. And again, all this is built into the Zoom platform at no additional cost. The last thing that I would point out here is going back to the management portal is underneath the personal section, my user has analytics and reports. Now, analytics and reports here are specific for call queue managers. If I click on analytics and reports, I'm going to now have access for real-time analytics as well as historical reports for all of the call queues that I'm an admin for. So for example, if I click on call queue analytics, again, there's not a lot of information here because this is a sandbox that we're in right now. You'll see things like active calls. How many calls are on hold? How many are waiting? How many calls are on outbound? What's our service level compared to our service level agreements? So we can manage that and actually set these KPIs with thresholds. If I scroll down a bit, I can now actually see the call queues that are active on the system that I'm managing. And if I click on them, let's choose the C1G help desk, I can now get visibility into the actual agents and if they're logged in or not. And here I see that Bobby Hanson is logged out or opted out because he's eating lunch. And I know that's only 2 minutes before the hour, his lunch hour is up and we have a bunch of calls. So I, as the manager, am going to go ahead and make Bobby available. So in a nutshell, Ryan, what we talked about from reporting analytics was call logs as well as SMS logs, the ability to dashboard, including seeing real-time information and network conditions, as well as providing historical and real-time reports to call queue managers.
I really appreciate your time today in the demo. It was great to see the user experience, the admin experience, and how easy it was to go through this process. Thank you guys for your time. And I want to remind you that C1GS can help you with any of the things we discussed here today. Our contact information is below.